Hello, and welcome to the AK Podcast, where we explore science and nutrition behind livestock care and management with the best and the brightest in the business. I'm your host, Chris Radke, part of the sales team here at Agri-King. And if you're listening for the first time, this is a part 2. So if you want to catch up, you could listen to the first one, or if you want to just jump into the story, we're here again. I'm with, today and usual, Mr. Mike Donaldson, who is a director of field service and a member of sales management team. Hey, Mike. How you doing again?
Very, very well. Excited to get going with this part 2, Chris.
Yeah. As am I. All right. You want to introduce Don again?
We're once again joined by my fellow member of the sales management team at Agri-King, Don Sanders. Part 1, we talked about why all farm component efficiency is an increasingly important thing. This is maybe the more fun of the 2 parts, because we're going to talk a little bit about how. It's one thing to know you want this. Sometimes what's more important is knowing how to get it. So, Don, take us through some aspects that need to get covered to improve this on farms.
We want to give people tips today on how to increase their component efficiency, and there's lots of ways to do that. I do want to back up a little bit, so I do want to encourage you to look at part 1, and then I'm not going to go through why I put all this stuff together for over 40 years and watch people succeed, but check out part 1. But we're going to move to component efficiency and how you can move that with your herd of cows. There are 3 basic ways that you can do things with, and then we'll get into other little things as we go on down this track. The first thing is cow comfort. If she is not comfortable, she's not going to give her the best shot to you. So you can do that. You can look at all kinds of aspects of heat abatement and air quality and flow in beds and stalls and on and on and on as far as cow comfort. But that is one of the keys that helps component efficiency. The other one is forage quality, of course. The higher quality forages, the more energy will be in there, the more energy in a usable farm for the cow. She will actually eat less and give the same or more because the calories are there to do it. If you don't have the calories in your forages, you're going to have to supply them from other products or byproducts. That cow can take a lot of byproducts. This is the real reason that cows are so special, that they can take things that humans can't get value out of, put it through that rumen, and make milk, and milk can go into the cheese and the yogurt and fluid, and we take that in as humans, and look what we can do with that. So that's why the cow's the magnificent milk-making machine, and we process that milk into different things to help us live our lives and be healthy. And the final third thing is the genetics that you have, and whether you have genetics for higher components or whether you don't, and you be able to look at things that way and get help from the genetic side of whoever you're doing business with. And that's also another important piece of that. So it's like a 3-legged milk stool. You got to have the comfort, you got to have the quality forages, and you got to have the genetic base to produce those higher components in your milk.
Well, and maybe this is going back a little bit, but I'm assuming somebody didn't bother to listen to part 1 because they're excited to hear how to do it. What was the thing that tripped the switch in your mind, Don, to seeing how this is a valuable metric and something that farms need to be more aware of? When was your light bulb moment?
It was probably a few years ago when we started being paid by that fat and protein more per point than we ever were before. And I said this in part 1, but I got to re-say it again because this is a real important part, is that today you will get paid more for 1/10 of a pound of fat increase than you will for 1 pound more milk. So you will concentrate that milk and you pay per 100 for that milk to be leaving your dairy. So you're paying less hauling to carry more fat and protein away from your dairy. That's a win-win-win. So the how part of that is, I'm going to go straight back to forage quality, and I've watched forage quality for years get better and better, and combinations. It used to be growing up in a haylage, high moisture corn deal in the 60s to 70s. Then we switched more to corn silage. Today we're probably more corn silage based because I'm going to say this, it's not easier, but it's more uniform and is that way on a large scale. And then we're either putting haylage and or there's a big switch to small grains, at least in my area. And I know that's not across everywhere, but growing up in Pennsylvania and also living 15 years in Wisconsin, I saw a lot of different ways to do it. I also served dairies in North Carolina for a few number of years, and that they feed cows somewhat differently there too. But the bottom line is cow's a cow. She's going to eat some forage to get that rumen mat to work correctly. And you got to have quality forage and digestible NDF. Digestible NDF is what is going to fuel that cow to increase higher components. And if you don't have digestible NDF, it won't happen. It can happen, but it won't be as easy, put it that way. And that all starts with fertility. And I know I'm not an agronomist, but I watched soil over the years.
You know, Don, I'm maybe going to call you out on that because I've worked with you long enough, and I've seen you say that you're not an agronomist, and then I watch you teach and make observations that very few agronomists are sharp enough to make. So you may not be able to hide behind that. I'm not an agronomist.
Maybe not, but what I am is I look at forage samples for 40 some years and identified what is important for that forage to make the cow work. And it all starts in the field. And again, you cannot change soil structure in a few years. It takes a lot of time and a lot of understanding of what it takes for the roots to satisfy the rumen needs. And I got to say again, one of the aspects of that is sulfur, which we neglected for too many years because sulfur used to be free. It's called acid rain. It doesn't do that anymore because we cleaned it up. We took the sulfur out of the diesel fuel. It's clean. We have clean air. But that means you have to put sulfur, NPKs. They're all more important than they ever were before. The right ratios, the right time, the right application. And I've simplified this. I'm going to make two statements now. If you do not have sulfur at 0.1 in your corn silage, you don't have enough in your ground. And if your sulfur is not at 0.25 or higher in haylage and or small grains, again, you're short. But you got to remember sulfur leaches. So the more it rains, the more sulfur you need to apply. The higher the yield, the more sulfur you need to apply. And there's different types of sulfur. That's all I'm going to say anymore about that because it can be different in different areas in the U.S.
But
fair. Please get your agronomist on board and get samples and forage samples, tissue samples, and just get on the learning curve of that. That will help you. I got to say a little bit more, and I said I wasn't going to, but if you don't have enough sulfur, you will not get methionine, which is building block of protein and amino acid. The plant can grow them. But if it's sulfur not adequate, they can't do it. So that's my long, short sermon on sulfur. But
thank you. That
goes into quality forages. Of course, the maturity makes a big difference. So if you make it young, you'll have NDF digestibility increase. But if you make it too young, you won't have enough you can overdo it, not very often, but it can happen, that you don't have enough fiber in your rumen to make that work. So as people get more schooled in this, they are getting better and better and better at eating quality forages on time and getting into the structure and the fermentation. And Agri-King is a product that will help you increase NDF digestibility. It will also decrease the shrink you have because we're going to control the heat. So building block number one that we can help you with is fermenting your forages correctly and having your calories there and not burn up in the fermentation process. Because the first thing that burns is sugar, The second thing that happens is fiber becomes more concentrated. We don't want that. We have digestible fiber, not lignin fiber. So, and then we, of course, Agri-King can help in lots of ways. We have a good supply of different enzyme products that can attack starch or attack other fiber portions of your diet. And we have seen an increase of 4 to 5% of NDF digestibility from forage by using our enzyme system. We just don't come out there and just say, this is what you need. We have to first find out what you need, do a lot of lab testing and understand how you're feeding your cows and get there. It's not something you just jump in and go. We got to understand where you are and where you want to go before we're going to plot the course to go there. It's just a lot of backup for us in Agri-King, a great team effort. It's not just single people. That's what separates us out. And the component efficiency thing really became very important when they paid us more. And I said this again, I keep repeating that, but it can make a 40-cent difference in your per cow per day income over feed cost real quickly if you do these things right. And if it doesn't, there's ways that we can help you get there if you want to go there. It's a matter of matching the carbohydrate to the fiber in that rumen to make sure it works all the time. And if you look at your butterfat and your protein and the milk pounds produced, you can almost look at your cow and understand the body condition, all that stuff is happening, that you can really start to dial in your nutrition program to meet those needs.
When you start a new client, and this is one of the things that they want to focus on, they want to see an improvement in component efficiency. I kind of want to circle. I think he said something really important that I want to go back and underline again, that there's not just one way that this gets done, and it has to start with that individual farm and their strengths and their opportunities. Is there a common area of opportunity that you do see a little more frequently than maybe something else? You talked about that three-legged stool. I'm not trying to take the shortcut that this is what everyone needs to do, but is there one of those areas or one aspect of a ration that is you're seeing in the world you work in, which could be different other places, that's more common?
You have to take care of the housing first and all that stuff. That's cow comfort. You got to do that first. If you just not cow, she can't maximize her efforts unless you do in that respect. And then we already talked about the soil conditions and the forage quality and the IVDMD, which is in vitro matter digestibility. And some of you are familiar with that, some are not. But if you get that in the 75 or 80% range, simply put, if your forage IVDMD is at 80%, that means the cow will have an opportunity to use 80% of it, and 20% will be in the manure pit. If your forage quality is, say, 70%, you just lost 10% of opportunity for that cow to have, because the other 10%, now we're up to 30% that's in manure pit, not in the cow to be utilized. That's what happens when you have too much lignin. That can't be broken down only by one species in this world. Mike, do you know what the species is that can take care of lignin?
I'm going to go with termites.
You got it.
Okay. I got one.
Yeah, but they don't give much milk.
No, they don't
give much.
And they don't taste very good to my knowledge that we're going to start
and
eating them.
They don't give much butter fat either. So, yeah, that's kind of a loaded question, but you gave the correct answer. Fiber digestibility, and I've said it so many times, but that starts right there. And you can have that conversation with your agronomist or your seed supplier. And there's debate on BMR corns or BMR lookalike corns.
Okay.
And you have to visit with people in your area that are doing it. I thought a long time ago that is, by the way, one of the holy grails of feeding cows is knowing which variety works for you. And I used to recommend them. I don't anymore because they change so fast. So it's once you find one, and then a few years they say, no, we don't have that one anymore. So they have to make some changes, but they've done a really good job with genetics and what's available to use.
We've mentioned it individually, but give us the short and sweet. What is the equation? How does a farm figure out what their component efficiency is?
Your pounds of milk times the percent of fat. I'm going to make it real easy. 80 pounds of milk times 4% fat is 3.2 pounds. You got that number, Mike?
Yep.
3.2. Okay. And now for 80 pounds of milk, and we're 3.0 protein. Okay, you take your 80 times 0.3, that's 2.4. Okay. So you had 3.2 plus 2.4 is?
6.6.
Okay, keep remembering that.
Yep.
Okay. Now, let's say I'm shooting from the hip, so I don't know what the answer we're going to get from component efficiency. Say those cows were eating 55 pounds. So if you got, what was we're at? 6.6. Yep. You get your calculator out and divide it by 55, and then you get a percent of component efficiency.
And that would be 12.12 or 12%.
Which is very good. Okay. So I just brought them out of the air. But see, what you really got to remember now, of that dry matter that cow ate, 55 pounds, 12% is going to be available for the fat and protein, saleable stuff that humans can get. Now, if you're going to compare that, and I don't know these numbers, but if you compare it to a chicken, we lost big time. They want to be really a lot higher than that.
Well, but we're utilizing things that a chicken would only walk on.
Yeah, that's correct. That. You see, that's the rumen advantage right there. Yep, we're going to take feed that other animals can't use, and we can. The cow can produce it. But that's how the down and dirty of component efficiency is. And then if you add maybe a pound of less dry matter to get there, right now that's between 16 and 18 cents, depending where you are. So if you're moving your 12%, if you get 12, and most people aren't there yet, but you could be at 11 and move that by 1%, and you would reduce the dry matter intake, which some people think I'm an oxymoron, but no, it can be done. It just can be. I'm not going to say, I could say some things about some of my clients, but I'm not. I'm just going to say I'm experiencing it. They are. So it can be done. And the income or feed cost is definitely affected by it. So it's money worthwhile chasing. And some people are going to listen to this and say, yeah, but then you have to go buy this and go buy that. Maybe. And I'm talking about amino acids and bypass fats, and there's appropriate times for those things to mix in your diet to make the maximum use of it. But the first thing is make sure you get the forage right.
Well, and it doesn't take away, like you said, there's multiple variables here. It doesn't diminish. We're not saying it's a horrible thing to not only go from 4% fat to 4.3, but maybe go from 80 to 85 pounds of milk. You can win on multiple fronts in this.
You can.
And then you've got a multiplier on top of a multiplier. In your work, where you're, the Olympics were last year, but where's your bronze, silver, and gold level of component efficiency?
12% or more is gold, or really well, excellent. 11 to 12 would be the silver category, and which is good. It really is. And then 10.5 to 11 would be the bronze category of saying that's okay, but there's room for improvement.
And
one thing I got to bring up, and just because you did the one on water, if you have bad water, you're not going to.
Okay.
It's going to be a tough time increasing component efficiency.
Now I'm curious, and I already know you won't give a name. I would never ask you to. What are some of the lowest component efficiencies you have helped some of our people work with or run into yourself?
Some at 9,
Okay.
and some 9 to 10, but it's just because you don't have the energy level in the forages to get started right. It's
Okay.
almost like you need some kind of kindling to start it. So I used to use this as a way to get across what lignin can and can't do. So if you want to burn wood in a wood fireplace and or stove, and if you want the best wood, you want hardwood, so you'd be an oak, and that's going to give you heat and last longer. But if you want a quick deal, that's pine or some softwood.
Okay.
But burns up quick. But that's the difference between oak is highly lignified, pine is not, broken down easier. So the rumen's almost like a furnace, but it's not. I'm not saying that. I'm just using these woods as an example of you need some lignin, but you don't need more than enough.
So kind of what you're talking about, and this is just sound advice, I guess. Go back to when you and I were kids, Don. We're trying to get what we used to see, turning cows on to flush spring pasture.
Yeah.
12 months a year, out of stored feed. It happened. There was a big glut of milk because cows finally got good feed for the first time in months. And then by June, it dried up and went away, and we were back to what we always did. We're trying to give them that quality of forage every day of the year.
Yeah.
That is
pasture's good feed as long as you manage it correctly.
Sure. Well, that is very, very interesting. I'm kind of excited by the difference this can make on farms. Any closing thoughts on component efficiency, Don? Some advice you'd give somebody? What would you say?
Say that the Agri-King team is ready to help you go where you want to go, and we will be more than willing to show you and sit down with you and try to lay out a track for your success. And we would do that as a team effort to help you. Again, we're in this business to have help the client and the cow all at the same time.
Well, thank you, sir. Chris,
Hey, I thank you for this time, both Mike and Chris.
You're welcome. Chris, what did you learn today?
Hey, actually what I learned was part of Don's 3-legged stool, and it's something I've heard him say before, is that one of the legs is that you want boring cows. I remember him saying that. I just remember thinking of a cow just like sleeping on a pill, but that's what you want. The most comfortable cow is going to produce the most product, milk, and proteins and whatnot.
Don't change her. She doesn't like it.
I remember you saying that. I was like, that totally makes sense. If I'm lazy, I'm going to, do things the way I want them. So, all right. If you like what you heard, hit us up on any of our socials. If you have any questions or thoughts that you'd like us to talk about, you can email us at podcast@agriking.com. All right. Thank you so much, Don. Thank you so much, Mike. And have a great day.
Thank you,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you, Don.
Hello. I just want to jump in here at the end of this podcast, just to add a little clarification to the component efficiency problem that Don and Mike had worked through. Just in their willingness and their desires just to hope for the best for everybody, they made a little math error. So we're going to rework it and hopefully help everybody out in this instance. So in their problem, they assume that 80 pounds of milk. And with 80 pounds of milk, they 4% fat. So if you take 80 times 4%, you'll get 3.2 pounds of fat. If you have 80 pounds of milk and you have 3% protein, 80 times 3% is going to give you 2.4 pounds of protein. Now you take the 3.2 pounds of fat plus the 2.4 pounds of protein, you're going to get 5.6 pounds of components, as opposed to, I think they accidentally got 6.6. I think this is where they got a little messed up, hoping for the best. But what they should have got is 5.6. You take the 5.6 pounds of components divided by 55 pounds of dry matter intake. You times that by 100 to come up with a percentage of 10.2%. And in Don's scale, this would actually be a bronze, as opposed to, I think the formula they got 12%, which would have been a gold. But Unfortunately, in this example, they should have gotten a 10%, 10.2%, which would be a bronze, which means it's good, but there's room for improvement. So thank you so much for allowing us to improve. Thank you so much for just listening to us. And if you have any questions or things that you notice, please reach out to us at podcasts@agriking.com. And thank you so much for our fact checkers. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.